Hello everyone, I've got something a little different for you today. We're getting close, obviously, run up to Christmas, and my daughter Nula, who's very creative, 4 years old, um, asked me to write something about storm fairies. She's discovered storm fairies, or rather created storm fairies. I suppose they're sort of like in a way, imaginary friends, but she likes to tell stories about them. She asked me to do a little story about storm fairies. So that's what I'm going to read for you today. It's sort of a poem. Yes, it's not much, but I thought I haven't done a podcast for a while, so it might be something nice to start with as we get close to Christmas. So this is called The Storm Fairies. The skies were iron grey as the sun was chased away, and the air was thick and still and filled with static as the children hurried back along the dusty farmyard track to get inside before things turned dramatic. A chilling warning breeze rustled through the grass and trees, sending bird and beast in desperate search of cover, and the children paused their games and looked beyond the window panes at the sullen skies and said to one another, "Grandma says the coming rains will be just like a hurricane, with wind and torrents, lightning, hail and thunder, and that heavy stormy rain will rattle on the window panes, and the lightning strikes will tear the ground asunder. And I shall pity any fellow outside when the heavens bellow, for the wind and rain will shake and chill his hide, and he would envy me, for I am very safe, you see, warm and dry and snug inside." And then the youngest gave a shriek as a jagged lightning streak spiked down from metal skies far in the distance. And as they watched in wonder, they heard the rumbling thunder, and thus the storm was born into existence. Then a heavy splat of rain fell down on the window pane, followed by another, then another, and the children turned their eyes towards those angry skies as its vengeful mood was now at last discovered. A moment later came a torrent, which the children found abhorrent as they watched it coming down in small explosions, churning up the ground with a heavy rattling sound, and now the storm was turning truly loathsome. Now the children were abashed as another lightning flash flecked across those heavy skies of lead, and as thunder roared reply, every child let out a cry and felt a chill of ice-cold mortal dread. And the pouring, drenching rain came just like a hurricane, bringing with it lightning, hail and thunder, and that pouring, drenching rain rattled on the window panes, and the lightning struck to tear the ground asunder. Then the youngest of the cousins shouted over the percussion, "I can't deny I find this storm exciting. And I want to go outside, for I just cannot stand aside, and I want to further see the world igniting." At this her sister, cousin's brother, turned to stare at one another, and the elder said, "You fool, all this is frightening, and we will not just stand aside and let you go outside, for can't you see the world beyond igniting?" But too late she hit the floor and hurried to the door, had flipped the latch and left, they could not stop her. So instead they stood aghast as she strode into the blast beneath that sky of molten lead and copper. All at once she was attacked and very nearly driven back, but she straightened and cried out, "I have no fear. Give me thunder, give me rain, let the lightning come again. Give me all the power of the stratosphere." She raised her arms up overhead towards those heavy skies of lead. "I can see the heavens now in all their glory, and though most would think it tragic, I feel a special kind of magic, and I relish being central to the story." Then right before her eyes, from those heavy leaden skies, there came a jagged, blinding flash of lightning, and from the house they cried, "Come back, for you are facing an attack. The storm, the storm, the storm, the storm is heightening." But the youngest turned her eyes to address the savage skies. "I know you think this all ought to be frightening, yet in this tumultuous stormy strife I feel the very breath of life, and to tell the truth I find it all enlightening. And I feel a certain pride in coming here outside, for the people, birds and beasts are all compliant in seeking sanctuary, and yet I alone am free, and now I stand before the firmament defiant. And it is surely very tragic that so few can see the magic, and instinct tells them to run fast for home. And if just I can feel enhancement at this storm's ceaseless advancement, then I am more than free to stand here all alone." Meanwhile, within the heavy clouds, from where the thunder sounded loud, the lightning and the rain with much persistence induced a certain altercation which resulted in creation, and the storm fairies were sparked into existence. In number they were 5, and as they came alive, they gave a joy of cry at their existence, and said, "What fun that we were born within the heart of this great storm, from which the world below can offer no resistance." for we were formed within the core of these clouds which wage a war, bringing down the lightning strikes with much precision, which sends down the roaring gales and the heavy crashing hail, and to the sanctity of earth makes no provision. And now we'll join the battle as the rains pour down and rattle to disrupt the natural rhythm of the earth, and when the rivers break their banks and the wind takes tiles and planks, we shall truly find the meaning of our birth. On the ground there was no slackening, and the skies were further blackening, as afternoon was grimly turned to night. The youngest once more cast her eyes up towards those angry skies, and those 2 eyes made out 5 pinprick specks of light. And the fairies of the storm, seconds after they were born, were tumbling, flying, falling, pirouetting, and their gleeful amber eyes were very soon apprised to the chaos which that vicious storm was wrecking. And as they tumbled from the skies, they raised their hands and cried, "Let the whole world cower at our presence. Let us tear the earth apart. Let our reign of chaos start. Let the thunder lightning strike in incandescence." Within their souls they held the power to demolish and to scour, with lightning shooting from their fingertips. Alongside the torrid thunder that would tear the land asunder, they were ready to bring down apocalypse. Now in a field there stood a tree, and with a wicked cry of glee came the fairies spinning round it with a laugh, and as they cast their lightning bolts, there came a heavy jolt as the trunk was torn away and cut in half. Falling branches, tearing bark, left an ugly jagged mark, and the bright green healthy leaves were set aflame. Cried the youngest at the scar, "Are we really now at war? Oh, for me this world will never be the same." Meanwhile the fairies circled round as the tree crashed to the ground. The torrents will soon see the fire extinguished, yet this ugly jagged stump has very quickly borne the brunt, and thus we start the battle much distinguished. Now the youngest stood aghast as she stood witness to the blast, crying out they're wanting to ignite us, bringing lightning, thunder, rain to set the landscape all aflame, and they will not stop until it's all detritus. And then her family cried, "Come back, did you not see that lightning crack, and hear the thunder rattling the windows? For this storm is like no other, so come back inside, take cover, or very soon you'll be turned into cinders." But she set her face like stone as she braved the storm alone, and said, "Oh no, I will not be compliant, for these fairies of the storm treat our world with hate and scorn, so you may hide, but I remain defiant." Now by the fields there was a stream which was central to their scheme, and in peaceful times provided irrigation. And the fairies now broke ranks, made the waters break their banks, and that water overflowed without cessation. Her grandma cried, "My flesh and blood, you need to shelter from that flood, for the weather now is very far from balmy, and you'll be washed far away if you do decide to stay, for the waters are advancing like an army. Oh, surely you can't choose to stay out in this deluge. Come back whilst you still can, my poor granddaughter, for no girl was ever born who could face this kind of storm and weather this assault by fire and water." But the youngest wiped her forehead and said, "Oh no, I must go forward, though I will admit this is quite scary, for it seems that I alone refuse to cower in my home, and thus I will go to face those wicked fairies." But meanwhile the fairies scattered, and the world around them shattered as they wrought a horrid vengeance on the land. Many trees were felled and splintered as their evil fingers glinted, shooting bolts of lightning from their hands. And the air was further tightening as a jagged spike of lightning, with the wind engaged in demolition. And the fairies cried with glee at the destruction they could see, which was brought about upon their own volition. And still the waters rose, flooding houses, flooding roads. The wind blew harsh, and from the roofs fell tiles. And the passage of destruction, brought on by the storm's eruption, wrought a path across the land for many miles. And the storm fairies came hence, spurred on by their arrogance, casting forth their wrath without refrain. What fun to come and play, as lords of all that we survey, and masters of the mighty hurricane! Yet the youngest still came forth, as the rain came down in force, and the wind swirled round her with a deafening drone. "Not one living thing this hour dares to stand against your power. Very well then, I shall save the world alone." And her cousin's brother sister gave a sigh and said, "We'll miss her, for she was surely one with much charisma. Yet now we watch her disappear within the very thing we feared, into that dense and swirling gumbo-grey miasma." Across the field she raced as the torrent struck her face, for she saw 5 glowing lights in the far distance. "You shall regret the very day you took my peaceful life away, for I will surely make you rue your brief existence." Now a hedgehog poked his snout from 'neath a hedge and gave a shout. "Why did you not stay home where you might settle? Did you not have the slightest clue when the sky stopped being blue? Did you not see the heavens shimmering like metal?" Meanwhile the fairies of the storm treated all the world with scorn, as they wrought a great destruction most impious, but then did whirl and saw the girl. "Who is this child that comes here to defy us? Well, hello there, this is nice to see a willing sacrifice. You really do not think that you can fight us, for all 5 of us were born within this bitter smiting storm, and we will not stop until the world's detritus. At this the youngest stopped and pointed, and said, It seems I am anointed to challenge all the chaos you have stirred, and I defy the very thunder of this storm that I am under, and raise my voice above it to be heard. For I shall not give you a choice to drown out my very voice amidst this storm's cacophony of sound. And I challenge you right here, and I know that you can hear. Come hitherto and face me on the ground. The fairies cried, You think you're brave? You think that you alone can save this land from the effects of our great passion? You have the courage of a fool, for it is we who rule, and guide this storm to give the world a lashing. Why need you not just run and hide with your family safe inside? Your presence here can only serve to blight us, for we are the breath of life of this windy, stormy strife. Yet you really think that you alone can strike us? Many mightier than thee took their chance and chose to flee, for the warning signs were very clear displayed. Yet we know that you are bluffing, for you are even less than nothing. It is not enough to come here unafraid. And now we say enough, for you are simply not so tough, and we find you in our presence quite offensive. So if to be a martyr is really what you're after, we shall very soon put you on the defensive. It was a heavy lightning bolt that began the great assault, which the youngest now just had to keep at bay, as a hefty thunderclap very nearly knocked her flat, and shook the ground with trembling ricochet. And now she found herself assailed with heavy stones of hail, and she had to crouch down low to miss a bruising, and a heavy drenching rain drenched her head to toe again, and to all the world it looked like she was losing. And the fairies brought a flood to around where she was stood, and turned that grassy field into an island, and as she slipped and staggered, soaking wet and all bedraggled, there came another surge of stormy violence. Yet she cried, I'm bothered not, give me everything you've got. Your lightning strikes and hail don't leave me worried, and if I fall today, you will not see me go away, for the living world will know that I had courage. And though you send me driving rain, you see I only rise again, defying that you set the world igniting. And if you knock me back with your merciless attack, then the living world will know I went down fighting. And as she stood her ground, she laughed in the face of windy blast that those fairies really thought that they were winning. Lightning knocked her to the mud, but she very quickly stood, and to every blow they dealt she came back swinging. Yet this fearsome altercation had divided the attention of the fairies from the storm they'd helped direct, for there could be no illusion things would soon reach a conclusion. The Storm Fairies would pay for their neglect. And on the island of the flood, where still the youngest stood, she found that their attacks beheld less power, as once heavy driving rain was now very much restrained, and soon could only really be a shower. And the fairies of the storm from the battle now were torn, too late to see the brutal storm abating. And as they looked in shock, the youngest shook her fist and mocked, Well, 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 oh my, this is frustrating. Now at last I've made you see, through my own humanity, I came through this storm because I didn't fear it, and as you fade away on this most memorable day, reflect upon my boundless human spirit. And the fairy light was dimmer, until they barely shone a glimmer, and they said, We grant that you have won this day, but in this world you'll never put an end to stormy weather, and you can rest assured we'll meet again some day. Now the youngest waded back until she stood back on the track, her clothes soaked and her hair clung to her scalp, and when she saw the hedgehog's snout, she gave a laugh and then a shout, You know your words weren't really any help. And soon the skies were blue and the sun shone out anew, the waters from the flood were calm and shrinking, and though she got a scolding at her grandmother's beholding, the youngest could not hide what she was thinking. For I have faced the stormy rain that came like a hurricane, torrid lightning, hail and wind and thunder, and that heavy storming rain has been infused into my brain, yet I did not let it tear my soul asunder. And that frightful stormy scene has left me feeling much redeemed, for I have faced the firmament and won, and when those stormy rains return to rack the earth again, I will cry out to the heavens, Let it come. So that's just a little poem. I wrote, it's gone on for almost 15 minutes. So yeah, if you're still here, I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, let me know what you think. And goodbye for now.